Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the final days of campaigning are underway in Kenya ahead of August 8th polls. But as Election Day approaches, anxiety is growing across the country and security is ramped up. Also, almost 7 million voters in Rwanda are preparing to cast their ballots in Friday's presidential elections. But there is little doubt about the outcome. Incumbent President Paul Kagame has already claimed victory, even though he's technically one of 3 candidates in the running. And we head to Cameroon, where the Bishop of Bafia, who died under mysterious circumstances in June, is buried, as other clergy insist that he was murdered, despite the official finding of death by drowning. But first, at least one police officer was killed in northern Kenya by an attack claimed by al-Shabaab militants on Thursday. Rocket-propelled grenades were fired on a military outpost near the border with Somalia before the raid was repelled. Now, the violence comes as the country enters the final stretch ahead of general elections next week. The murder and torture of an electoral commission IT chief earlier this week has ramped up already stark concerns about the safety of the vote. Security has already been boosted as President and incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta and longtime rival Raila Odinga enter their final days of campaigning. For the big day itself, August 8th, security services say that they'll be mobilizing 150,000 officers for the vote and will go as far as they can to keep the peace.
Instances where there is a requirement that we respond a little bit much more robustly, the response will be in strict conformity with the law, and we shall endeavor to ensure that whatever response is done is proportionate to the situation that we are required to normalize.
So as Election Day approaches, many fear a repeat of the post-electoral violence that followed the 2007 vote. Over 1,000 people were killed, hundreds of thousands were displaced. Now, there's been an exodus from some parts of Nairobi as worried families there pack up and head out to rural villages as a precaution ahead of next Tuesday.
Priska is hurriedly packing her family, getting ready to leave Nairobi by bus in a few hours. After weeks of anxious speculation about the possibility of post-election violence like the country experienced 10 years ago, they made the decision to get out just a day before. They fear they'll be targeted over their ethnicity if the results don't go their way.
This government is the opposition side, so we are like 2 people. We don't like each other. We can fight. If this election don't go the right way, there must be some chaos.
Her husband is off to book the tickets. These days, you can't hop on at the last minute. People have been leaving the slums in large numbers for 2 weeks, and bus fare is on the rise.
At the moment, it's very expensive because so many people are traveling home, traveling to the rural area.
He's spending 45 euros on the tickets, twice the usual fare. But the high price is matched by high demand. Kibera's streets are full of porters carrying luggage and empty of residents. Priska and Frederick's neighbors left without telling their landlord.
Maybe they thought maybe I might enlighten some people that they are running away because of the elections. I think that's maybe the reason.
By night, travelers are often harassed by people demanding to see their voting registration cards, so the family must be discreet. Politicians fear losing votes, and people registered in Nairobi are often stopped from boarding the bus. Priska, Frederick, and their children managed to dodge those hoping to stop them, and are relieved to be heading to the countryside.
Safe because at home we have our parents there. And so then there's enough security.
For now, the capital remains on edge, but if the results next week aren't contested and violence is avoided, the family and others of the Nairobi exodus plan to return a few days after the polls.
Well, overseas Rwandans began voting in the country's presidential election on Thursday. That's a day before polls open back in their homeland. Almost 7 million voters in the country can cast their ballot on Friday, but there's little doubt about the outcome. Incumbent President Paul Kagame has already claimed victory in the vote, even though he's technically one of 3 candidates in the running. Well, our Thais Brook is in Kigali and he joins us now with more. Thais, what are the plans for Friday?
The polling stations are opening at 7 a.m. and queues are expected to be quite long. Nearly 7 million Rwandans are expected to vote in more than 2,000 polling stations. 3 candidates will be on the ballots. Independent candidate Philippe Paimana, the president of the Green Party, Frank Habineza, and the incumbent president Paul Kagame, the candidate of the all-powerful Rwandan Patriotic Front. Paul Kagame announced during the campaign that Friday, August the 4th, is just a formality. He's definitely the favorite for the election. He's aiming to vote himself at around 11 a.m. local time Friday, near his home in downtown Kigali. It would be surprising if Kagame gets less than 90% of the vote. Officially, more than 98% of Rwandans voted yes in 2015 for the referendum, amending the constitution, which allowed Kagame to run for a 3rd term. The polling stations are closing at 3 p.m. local time, and the results are expected in the evening.
So as we mentioned, Kagame seems to be heading straight for a 3rd term. Is he really that popular in Rwanda?
Yes, indeed, he is popular. His rallies have brought together thousands, even tens of thousands of people. There isn't a single day without him being praised in the local press or on Twitter. Paul Kagame has ruled the country with an iron fist since the end of the 1994 genocide, and is relying on his past achievements to carry him through once again. He has ended the genocide, rebuilt the country, and some observers even talk of an economic miracle. But human rights organizations denounce an authoritarian regime that represses any dissenting voices. So, in that context, it's hard to know what Rwandans really think about him. In the view of some, that even brings the credibility of the ballot into question.
Thanks very much. Thais Brook there for us in Kigali. Now, another Zambian opposition leader has fallen foul of the police. Xavier Chishimba was arrested on Thursday on charges of defaming President Edgar Lungu. Officers haven't released the details of the offences, but it does carry a 5-year prison term. In July, Chishimba criticised Lungu's decision to impose emergency powers and suggested that he should go to hospital to be tested for his mental health. Chishimba announced his detention on Facebook on Thursday to his supporters. Political tensions in Zambia have been rising since main opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema was arrested on treason charges in April. Now, South Africa's denied paying a ransom for the release of one of its nationals by Al-Qaeda 6 years after he was seized by Islamist extremists in Mali. Now, Stephen McGowan is finally back in Pretoria after having been freed on July 25th. Now, McGowan was kidnapped in 2011 at a hostel in Timbuktu, where he had been travelling as a tourist. In early July, the 42-year-old was included in a proof of life video released by the Al-Qaeda-linked Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin group in Mali. We turn now to Cameroon, where the Bishop of Bafia, who died under mysterious circumstances in June, was held on Thursday. Although authorities ruled that Bishop Jean-Marie Benoit Bala died of drowning, his diocese insists that he was murdered. Our correspondents were at the service.
The procession, accompanied by wailing sirens, on the way to Yaoundé Cathedral for the farewell mass of Bishop Jean-Marie Benoit Bala, the Bishop of Bafia, who died in June under mysterious circumstances. An outpouring of emotion as the coffin arrived, welcomed by chants and a teary-eyed congregation waving handkerchiefs in grief. 2 months after the bishop's death, his parishioners and the Catholic community continues to seethe in anger. Convinced he was murdered, they're demanding that justice be done to find those responsible for his death. After Yaoundé, the procession heads to Bafia, where the bishop worked for 14 years. Heavy security has been deployed to contain the throng of followers, local dignitaries and village chiefs. Many are still in shock.
What we're going through is incredible. I think it's a one-of-a-kind situation where a bishop can just disappear like this. You can imagine our sadness, our disappointment.
For the Cameroonian diocese, it's an opportunity to intensify its tug-of-war with the authorities, who concluded that the bishop drowned. The clergy agreed to bury the bishop, but have formally asked authorities to pursue a murder investigation.
We will bury our brother in peace. We know what happened. Now everything is in the hands of the justice, and that's what we're going to follow.
15 clergymen were mysteriously murdered in Cameroon between 1988 to 1991, and local clerics allege that there is a common thread to the homicides. They fear the Bishop of Bafia is the most recent victim.
Well, that's it for In Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
The Observer's Direct, presented by Derek Thompson.
The pine forests of northern Ukraine, devastated by illegal mining. Amber can be worth $5,000 a kilo, and our observers say it's led to a ruthless business, deep in the heart of the forest, pitting miners against the police, with the forest losing out. It's on the next Observer's Direct.
The Observer's Direct, on France 24 and France24.com.